You are live on YouTube.
So I'm gonna look to you to make a motion on this again.
Okay. Just a motion to accept or?
Well, whatever your motion is, and I'm gonna look at me.
Yeah, I'm going to sign.
To sign, accept the consent agreement. Okay.
David, I thought you had to work tonight.
I am working. I'm on duty, so I may have to leave if we get a call.
Oh, so you're in, okay.
I'm in Rockland.
Sounds like Cliff's got quite a little event planned for.
Little,
Yeah.
we're gonna put everybody.
Did he bring in his mobile unit too?
Well, that's what I understood, but it didn't sound like it in his letter, it didn't mention,
You're talking about the Knox.
right,
But no,
Clinic with
not-
mobile, yeah.
health fair or,
I hope so.
He's got a lot of ambition.
he does.
And David's supposed to be,
Yeah, no, I know. David's got a lot of ambition too.
but I think it'll be good for people to get an idea of how these AEDs work.
Yeah,
And they talk to you and everything, but I think having watched the video, it's
Yeah.
a good idea to know what's coming if you have to
Yeah.
use it.
yeah, we have them at school. You get trained on them every year.
Mhm.
Not everyone does, but I'm on the response team, so.
Mhm.
Good, you're in control if something happens here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think every 2 years we do CPR.
So it's
Maybe
Flip.
it's every year.
changing batteries and checking them and stuff.
These two here,
Mhm.
they're ours, we're in charge of them.
Do you do them like once a month?
We haven't had them up yet.
Oh, okay. I thought it was new.
But is there a plan for someone to do them?
Yeah, you should do it once a month.
Yes,
We
when
have,
we do the.
we have a check sheet on the inside of ours.
Yeah, when we do the fire extinguishers every month.
Well,
I think there's a daily.
EMA was doing ours, but I don't think they've been in since we moved
Mhm.
up here.
We have alarms on ours too, so if anybody opens them,
But, so I'm afraid to open it. Cause it's loud.
we just tell the people by wherever it is, we're opening the door. So we can check it. Then you just have to pull a pin out and it will stop.
Yeah, it looks like EMA's, she's doing it at the community church, but not here.
Cause that was my concern, once you put them up there, if we don't have them running. Operating properly, then we sort of open ourselves
Yeah.
up. for-
Oh, yeah.
People expect them to be there
Yeah,
and grab
the
one, you want it to be
expectation is
working.
there that it'll work.
And I think I don't know about these, but on ours, you have to change the pads every 2 years.
Okay, I've got 6 o'clock. We are recording, so I'll call this regular select board meeting to order at 6 o'clock. And if you could, please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adjustments to the agenda. We've got two folks to join.
Yeah. 2 new hires for the fire department.
Okay, and I suspect one of them might be here.
They're both here, I
Oh,
believe.
they're all here. Oh, okay. Then we'll do that right after we review the minutes. Any other adjustments need to be made? Addition, subtraction. Okay, review the minutes from October 30th.
I make a motion, we approved. The minutes from October 30th, the second draft that was sent out,
Revision.
or revision 1, sorry.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion, corrections, edits? All those in favor?
Okay.
Okay, Chief, you got it.
All right, so I have 2 new members there that came last night to one of our officers' meeting, and we voted to accept them on as 6-month probationary firefighters. So it's Andrew and Andrew. They're both Andrews. So they can. We'll just choose Andrew Tyler. His wife is on the ambulance service, and he's interested in joining and helping out. So I'll let him talk to you guys and give a little background and stuff.
Yeah, well, for starters, my wife had become an EMT and she's here in South Thomaston. And that was one of the first starting points of why I wanted to jump in. And since I was raised in the world of trade and labor, I always had those categories of plumbing and electrical and stuff. And it really intrigued me that I can add another chart onto that list of what I can learn and educate. And I've been in plenty of scenarios of having car accidents and stuff. And when I had those experiences, I was always focused and going to help the people around me and the people that were afflicted with it as well. So I'm really interested and I love the education. It would be a great thing to have in the background, especially to keep my family safe in the long run.
You have any firefighting experience
No.
up to this point? No.
Nope. I've been to the event last Sunday, which was one of the beginning starting points too, to show that, we really need the help in all the towns. And I also went to the extrication last Wednesday, I believe. And that was really great to see that up front personally. So I was able to learn basic steps on how to save someone out of a vehicle in dire situations like that, so.
Hi, my name is Andrew Zip. We just relocated here from New Jersey. But I've been coming to this area for a long time. Fort Clyde specifically 15 years, Maine close to 40 years. And prior United States Marine, disaster volunteer, 9/11, Red Cross training, a recipient of involved in a bad fire with lightning strike at a house I had. Got a life-saving award for getting people out. Wilderness first responder. And I've never been a fireman, family history of firemen, but I'm looking forward to be involved and help out.
You currently live in Fort Clyde or?
No, we live 265 West Brook Street.
Oh,
Yeah, we just bought that house this summer.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
And you're also living in town?
We're in between moving. Right now I'm stationed in the camper with my family at my sister's property. but we're working on saving up money and building up credit. We should be looking around for a house this spring.
So what town are you currently living in?
Cushing.
Cushing, okay.
Thank you.
They're a little further away, but not too far.
No.
Good. I hear a motion.
I'll move, I didn't catch the names, I'm sorry, and it wasn't on the agenda, so. Can you tell me your names again?
My name is Andrew Zip, CIPP.
And I'm Andrew Tyler.
Andrew Zip and Andrew Tyler. I'll move that we approve the hiring of Andrew Zip and Andrew Tyler as 6-month probationary firefighters. Is that the correct?
Yep.
Correct, yeah.
Yes, firefighters. Yep.
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion? Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
I have to go get my son.
Yeah. We didn't expect you to stay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Andrew
you.
Tyler grew up here.
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, he's filled out a little bit since I last saw him.
Hey, next on the list.
Thank
is-
you.
It's listed as consider authorizing enforcement action, but I think it's really consider authorizing signature for the consent agreement that the Elliots have agreed to with the CEO and with our attorney.
So I make a motion that we accept the consent agreement with Michael Elliott and Elaine Poirier Elliott. And that we sign the consent agreement.
I'll second that.
And just for anybody out in the audience, this is a case in the shoreland zone. Where updates to a cottage were taken that don't match our rules, and so they have accepted an agreement that they'll pay for our attorney fees, a $5,000 penalty, and make corrections to the property to be in line with what the CEO has agreed to. Any further discussion?
I just want to point out that, yes, they're required to make some corrections, but the corrections do not put them in compliance with the ordinance. So the property will still be, it'll be legal now, for lack of a better word, because of this consent agreement, but and DEP has signed off on it as well. But my understanding is this is going to be recorded at the Registry of Deeds, correct?
Yeah.
And I think that's important because one of the provisions of this is this property can never, ever be, unless the law changes, ever expanded again, so.
Right,
So with that, good job, Terry and Chris.
yes. Thank you.
Long road. All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye. We have to need to sign that, or is it in the sign
It's
pack?
in the sign.
Okay.
Jeff, do you have anything else from the fire department while I'm on here? So can get going?
I have a quick question. How, from your point of view, how did the Pennis Harbor stuff go?
The Port Clyde fire?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It went good as it could have gone. I feel.
Yeah,
So everyone worked well together. It was a lot of hours and I think everything went great.
and you pretty much had everybody out there for several hours?
Yeah, we were able to relieve probably about half of our crew around 1 o'clock that next day. And then the other half stayed until like 7 or 8 o'clock that night, whatever it was. So half of the crew was there for like 20 hours. The other half was there like 13 or 14, something like that.
Well, thank you for you guys' efforts and sacrifice. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's all. Okay.
Before David leaves, Terry, do you know if David knows anything about if Amy's coming for
I
this?
don't know, I texted her and she hasn't replied.
Were you gonna be involved, can I just ask?
Oh, yeah.
Were you gonna be involved in discussing the stabilization program over here with Amy, or?
Nope, didn't know anything about it. Nope.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Walter has his hand raised.
Hello, Walter.
Hi, I have a question. Has there been any progress on fire regionalization?
The only progress I'm aware of is the county is currently doing a study. Courtney, I think is who's doing it.
Is there any thought about evolving to a hybrid model where we start to hire career permanent employees over time, supplement them with volunteers? And would such a thing make the roster more attractive or the job more attractive? And by the way, David, kudos to you for starting to rebuild the staff there. I know that you've had additions before the two tonight, and that's just really a good sign. So thank you.
Yep, you're very welcome.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any moves in that direction.
So I think there might be some models out there of other departments. If I don't know, do you know? Am I off the wall, David, or is that something that is talked about in other circles about volunteer departments moving towards what I'll call a hybrid model, where you have part permanent and part volunteers?
Yeah, no, I don't think you're far off. Thomaston is kind of gone in that route a little bit. They have a person that's there so many hours per week now that they've just started this year. That person takes care of like truck checks, equipment checks, and does all that stuff while they're there during the day, to relieve the volunteers on some of the stuff. So there are towns that are going that way with things.
Okay, glad the seed is planted.
Can I make a comment, and I have a question? First of all, my understanding is we do not have any volunteers anymore. Is that not correct? I mean, everybody.
No.
Pardon?
That's correct. Everyone is paid.
So I think that's a bit of a misnomer term that and I know what people are referring to when they use that, but I think words are important. And so that's one thing. The other thing is, wouldn't the EMS model that we have currently sort of be similar to a hybrid model? I mean, we have full-time people during the day. I know it's not full-time employees, they're per diems, so-called, and then as a result of that, they're not eligible for benefits. But it's sort of a hybrid model, is it not? Or am I missing what you're trying to portray, Walter? I guess that's a question to Walter.
Yeah, I just what I heard from David is similar to what has been in place in the town that I used to live in Massachusetts, where they ran into the kind of staffing shortages that we've suffered, and they've started this process of over time they're going to have as many full-time firefighters as part-time. And that's an interesting point that you raised, John, about the misnomer. So we should decide what we call our firefighters so that people don't say that they're volunteers anymore.
Yeah, they're municipal firefighters.
I know some people call them on call, and I'd like to ask, since we've kind of headed down this hole a little bit, I'd like to ask David one more question. Does Rockland still have full-time and then all on-call people as well? I know they did several years ago.
Yeah. Yes, we do. We have 4 shifts with 5 people on each shift. And then once we get 2 ambulance calls, we do a call back. And then all the call members come in and they staff the 3rd rescue.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you guys once again, David. Good work on building the staff back up.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Next one is to execute the contract with Sundog, and I think I hear a motion to table that.
Well, I'd like to update a little bit. I did go to the resiliency committee meeting, not last Sunday, but the Sunday afternoon, just to kind of listen in and express some of the concerns that I personally had, and I think we all had. And different members discussed that and agreed to kick that around, get some questions. And I think we're making progress. I guess my biggest concern is it wasn't in their contract, but in their email. Sundog had indicated that it would make sense before we started the work to come out and check to make sure the electrical capacity system of the building was compatible. I had thought that had already been done. I guess it hadn't been, or
So there will, somebody asked. Okay,
Check your mutes.
yeah. Okay, I lost, where was I? But yeah, so I guess that's still the major question that needs to be followed up on. But also and again, I understand there was boilerplate language in there about change orders and so on and so forth, but I wanted to make sure Sundog was clear that there was no more money here.
Right.
And when this came and this select board agreed to do it, I can't remember whether you were here or not.
Yeah.
I mean, it was definitely under the understanding that there would be no additional money from the
Right.
town. And once we sign that contract, that puts us on the hook for certain things. Penny did say that if there was some minor expenses, that perhaps she could use some of her donation funds to cover the gap, but I don't, my sense was you weren't looking at $30,000. So I guess the long and the short of it is I don't feel we're there yet, and I would based on that, I would make a motion to table it.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
I don't know, Penny wants.
There will be by this Sunday that we have heard back from Sundog and also from, Meg Rasmussen about
Right.
proceeding to execute the contract that involves grant.
All right, all those in favor? Purchasing policy. I also hear an echo of tabling that.
Yeah, I apologize. I agreed to do some work on that and I haven't. I've been doing several things, but that's not one of them. So I'd make a motion to table.
I'll second that.
Further discussion, all those in favor? Okay, ATVs, you did do something on that.
Well, sort of. Terry did something as well. Or a couple of things. Yeah, I just, to get the ball rolling tonight, I drafted a letter that I thought we kind of briefly talked about sending to registered ATV owners, basically telling them that as of now, the Smith property is ATVs are prohibited. We have ordered a few signs that I will put up at the sort of what I call the three main entrances to the Smith property, which is the Stump Dump Road where it abuts the Benner property, the Stump Dump Road where it abuts the Prethera property, and then I guess what I call a four-way intersection that loops back to the Stump Dump Road, goes straight through to the 131 properties, and if you go right, goes out to Norton Drive. We just ordered some inexpensive plastic signs that will just tack to the tree and just says no ATVs, and see what happens there. But I think this is probably more critical. And I also baked into that the thought of inviting, sending that to everybody who's a registered ATV owner in. I was hoping to do St. George, Thomaston, Alta, and South Thomaston. Terry said she was able to get, I'm sorry, what were the three towns?
I'll said South Thomaston and St. George.
Man, you still might be able to get Thomaston, or
I'm hoping to.
yeah. Just because I think it is it's a regional thing, not just a town thing. But basically, the letter that as I drafted it, informs them that of three things, basically. One, that the Smith property ATVs are now prohibited, and request that they respectfully honor that prohibition. Two, that we anticipate, and I hope this is correct, but we anticipate putting similar restrictions on the Klein property, or asking town meeting to, or whatever we need to do, which we need to sort out. And three, that we need to have a discussion about what to do with the town property, because actually, in the time that I walked around out there, the most damage has been done to the town woods road, because it's nowhere near as good a road as the Stump Dump Road. It's kind of just an old clay woods road with no stone base or anything, and asking them, the ATV owners, as well as other members of the public, to come to a meeting, yet to be determined when, to offer their input about not so much about the Smith, because that's a done deal.
Right.
But about certainly the town property, and perhaps even the Klein property. Although I don't think, my sense is the Klein property doesn't get a lot of use, because there's not a lot of ATVs traverse the Klein property, because it's not a good way to access it, so. But anyways, so I don't know if this board wants to move forward on that path or not. I think it's the way forward, but and Terry didn't have a lot of luck. I don't want to speak for you, finding other towns' policies or ordinances.
I found one from Winslow, but it didn't really pertain to us. It was more of what roads they could go on, and
Speed that they had to be when they were on them.
yeah.
And I think coupled with this is, my understanding, the Conservation Commission at some point, hopefully in the near future, will be forwarding to this board a recommendation, or not, about incorporating some of the back town land, perhaps into this, for lack of a better word, reserve or town forest or whatever you want to call it. And I think that kind of weaves into this conversation as well. I have not personally dismissed the idea of having some sort of corridor that transverses the old town property for some ATV use. I have not completely dismissed that idea personally. It's had a historical use out there. I think we need to have it done in a more environmentally friendly way, but and I think it needs to be done in a way that's compatible with a walking trail along the old town road, because that to me makes sense. But right now, you almost can't even walk that road. It's so slippery and dug up, and I mean, I almost fell, and Dawn almost fell 3 or 4 times. It's bad. I mean, it almost can't walk it. Well, having said that, it's been an extremely wet year still, so I would urge that we send out this letter or something. I know you guys only got it today. I did CC it to Sandra. Maybe people can look it over, comment on it. But I'd like to see us sooner than later pick a date to invite these folks in, because I'd like to be involved in this discussion before I leave on January 2nd.
I think it's a good idea and a good letter.
Sometime in December.
Well, that's what I'd like to see, because town meeting warrant is. I mean, maybe that won't work, but I think it's important that we emphasize the Smith. The Smith prohibitions.
Yeah, I think the only change I'd make to yours is you put in request you voluntarily comply. I just strike voluntarily, because I don't consider it a volunteer thing. For the
That
at
you
least
comply.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what you're saying, yeah.
that you comply with this new restriction.
Yeah.
The edit I would make, but yeah, I'm all for selecting a date to do this. I just don't know if we can get it in December.
Well, it's only mid-November, so. We don't wanna get too close to Christmas.
Yeah.
Because we won't get participation, and we may not get a lot at all, but at least. We're reaching out, we're reaching out.
But we're meeting on the 12th right now of December.
Correct.
And it doesn't have to be a Tuesday,
No.
but we do need some time to get notice out and. But I think it seems we should be able to make it work. I mean, I think the timing works.
So you wanna pick like the 13th or?
Well, we don't want to conflict with a regular committee. And I would also, I'd invite Sandra if she has any comments to voice them, because she's been involved in this quite extensively, and I know that as the chair of the Conservation Commission, she might have some initial thoughts as well. And I did CC her that letter. I don't know if she had a chance
Yeah.
to look or not, but.
I'm on, John.
I see.
Can you hear me?
That's why I said that.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I read it. I saw one small typo. I was fine with it. Haven't had a chance to run it by any of the other Conservation Commission members. But what you're saying is let's talk, so we're not making any final decisions. I think you're right that it'd be good to get the interested public aware and involved and have an opportunity to hear from them. So the trouble with the 13th is that's our monthly meeting
Right,
at 5.
yeah. Could anybody do the 19th? Or is that getting too late?
Yeah, that's a conflict.
I could,
That's a
but
conflict.
it's hard to know.
What about the 11th?
Well, that's fire department, right?
Is that a Monday?
11th?
Is that a Monday?
That's a Monday.
That's the fire department or what?
Yeah,
They meet every,
Sometimes they meet, because they do truck checks, they run back there, sometimes they meet here. I could check with David.
well, you know, want to 10, does that work for you, Jeff?
Yeah.
I want to tentatively set that, but let's pick a backup.
Sorry, what did you pick?
We're tentatively
Yeah,
focusing on the Monday, the 11th. But
okay,
Terry needs to clear that with the fire department.
right, okay.
and what time would that be?
Well, I think it's gonna be at least 6.
Okay.
6?
At least,
Okay,
wouldn't go earlier, given the population we're trying to reach.
I
Okay.
mean, the following Monday is the 18th. That does get us into,
Well,
that's still.
we could do that.
Yeah, as a backup.
Yeah, so Sandra, we're talking about the 18th as a backup,
the 18th,
as a backup.
okay. Okay. And that is just a week before Christmas, so,
Yeah, I know, that's why it's a backup.
okay. Let me give you my very small typo, which is, 4th paragraph, the Smith property consisted of 3 parcels totaling, not totally.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
That's it.
So,
So we'll send this to the ATV, registered ATV owners and put it on our.
listserv and website and maybe even send it to the other towns,
Yeah. It's
just
good.
to ask them to post it, or I can work with Terry on that. If you would like, I'll do a little more research with MMA Legal about what we need to do, if anything, in terms of an ordinance, particularly as it comes to the Klein property, because technically, there are no restrictions on that. And we may need an ordinance even on the Smith property for enforcement purposes.
Mhm.
You know, if we wanna have some penalties or something, because, you know, Smith couldn't set penalties in his. Can enforce that and would enforce it, but, you know, I think, I don't know exactly what that meant, and so. But I think the initial step is just getting the word out. Because I think a lot of people don't realize, you know,
Agreed, yeah.
so. That's all I have on that subject, is somebody else has got something else.
No, I think that's a great start. Thank you. Okay, discussion about the stabilization program, and I think entertain a motion to table that, although what kind of deadlines was she looking at? I think there's a sneak in there.
October 25th to apply for funding. Doesn't say when, though.
Is it of 2024?
I don't know, just says on the front, there's a handwritten note on mine, it says October 25th.
Yeah, I think I read 2024.
Okay, so in that case, we've got some time.
Yeah, I read this with interest, and I'd like to read it again, because it's, first of all, it doesn't appear to me, you know, and again, we haven't talked to Amy, but it doesn't appear to me, just based on what I read, that it's directed towards companies or EMS services such as ours, but.
Oh, I thought it was.
Really?
Yeah, it's got several different categories, and
But it says. The purpose of the program is to provide financial assistance to emergency medical service entities at immediate risk of failing or leaving their communities without access to adequate emergency medical services. I guess I didn't feel we were in that category.
all of the medical services right now are kind of in that. I mean, it goes into the categories that we would qualify. I mean, we're a rural, and we don't do.
But then you gotta do the calculation to see if you're even eligible.
Right.
Yeah,
And-
but the way I'm reading it, everybody would be eligible. It's just how much you're eligible. And we might get anywhere between $5,000 and $50,000 is the way I'm reading it.
I'd like to read it in more depth, so.
Yeah, well, and I'd like to talk to you about it.
Yeah, oh, definitely, talk to Amy about it. So in some ways, I'm glad that we have a little more time to talk about it. So I'll make a motion, we table it. To the next meeting, which is
November 28th.
November 28th, and hopefully Amy can attend that.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, the next one is the discussion on the state's new affordable housing law and mandated changes. I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. Because it is, part of it is not very complicated, but requires us to take some specific action. But other parts of it could easily get complicated. And because of that, I think we need to do an outreach to the community. I think we need some feedback from the community, and I'll discuss it a little bit to explain what I'm talking about. The state law, the new state law, requires us to make room for additional housing at the cost of our aquifer, basically. So before, if you had an acre of land, you could put one dwelling on it, and we allowed a second dwelling. That's what we've done for the last probably 10 years, I guess. This new one allows you to put as many as 5, possibly 5 dwellings on a half-acre lot. Okay. And in some cases, possibly not. There are still some restrictions that you have to meet the state's requirement for total square footage. You can't do it on in the shoreland zone, basically. So to do that, you would end up having to use some kind of an engineered type of septic system. And it's still very restricted, but in the area we have identified for our growth, that we have said from our comp plan to now our ordinance, that the village extension area is designed for more dense and affordable housing. It is possible to do 2.5 times the normal. So on a half-acre lot, you could do 5, basically. We do have, our lawyer is working up the verbiage for us to comply with the law. Which the problem with that is that it is going to sacrifice some of our protection to the aquifer by allowing a more dense dwellings on each of them. So the law also recommended, and it's hard to say they're requiring it, but it does imply that they are requiring, and we do have to get it approved by the state. So it almost requires us to take a look at other rental properties, basically. The affordable housing portion of it, to get the highest yield of dwellings on a property, you have to deed it for, I think it's 30 years,
Yeah.
that it is can only be sold to or rented to low-income folks, and they have a definition of what low-income folks are, which also calculates to how much they can charge for it. But it also requires you to allow additional dwellings that are not low income, so they would be open. So we would end up sacrificing our aquifer, in my mind, to allow people to build additional dwellings on their property, and then they could rent it for anything. So the state has asked us to consider controlling short-term rentals and other rental properties, which right now we do not control those at all. We don't even require them to be registered. And the lawyer was recommending that we register short-term rentals. But in the discussion between the Ordinance Review Committee and the Planning Board, you can imagine that has met some resistance of now putting in our ordinance some restrictions on short-term rentals or even rentals at all. And so I think there is a good reason for doing it, but I'm not sure that the town is willing or wants us to go in that direction. So I would like to set up, I think in February is what I'm thinking, a information gathering meeting with the town to discuss what we have to do, what we should do, in my mind should do, and what direction they want to go in, because this is not an easy trail to go down. I will note, and to tell you the truth, I didn't realize it until we started going down this path. Because one of the objections is it also affects, if you have a 10-acre lot, how many dwellings you can put on that 10-acre lot. You can't put 10 dwellings on a 10-acre lot. Turns out that the state law for subdivisions and our town law ordinance for subdivisions considers a dwelling as if you do a third dwelling on no matter how much property you have, that's a subdivision. You have subdivided that property, even if it's kept in your own name. So there are some nuances to it that I think a lot of people in the town are not aware of. And I think there probably are right now people who have more than one dwelling, more than two dwellings on their property that have not met the subdivision requirement to go before the planning board. So I think part of it is educating everybody on what those particular rules are. And so for a lot of reasons, I think that it's important that we bring the public in, discuss it with them, explain to them what we have to do. And we don't have a choice. By July 1st of next year, we have to have our ordinance in compliance with the new state law.
So we're talking about this next town meeting.
The next town meeting. So I'm thinking if we start in, we've already started with the ordinance review committee and with the planning board and discussing and cussing and storming and norming. But I think it's time to bring the public into that fray as well, to see what kind of direction they would prefer that we go in. Because there are advantages and disadvantages whichever way you go. And the disadvantages are we can easily over encumber our cracked rock aquifer that we rely on for our wells. They used to have a number, they said 17, if you use more than 17% of your land mass is covered with impermeable things, that it's going to affect your aquifer. They kind of backed off on that, although that's still kind of the magic number. But they've said if you use 1 acre, if you do a dwelling on 1 acre, that you will be safe under that 17%. But we are now mandated to do something less than 1 dwelling per acre. And so if we're going to sacrifice our aquifer, then I want to make sure that it's what we have to do and that we're getting something out of it. And I mean, what we're getting out of it is affordable housing, which is the other thing that is one of the things that our comp plan decided 10 years ago that we need, is some affordable housing in our town.
And it's probably more critical today.
And it's probably more
Than it
critical
was
today.
10 years.
Yeah, right.
But if you put a stress on the water, that affordable housing isn't gonna be any good if nobody has any
Correct.
water.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I would think that the state should have something that you can do to protect that.
Well-
Because we don't have a big lake, we're not like, the city of Rockland or.
Yeah, and they did consider it, because they have kept in place the state requirements for the maximum number or the minimum number of square foot per dwelling that you're allowed to have, unless you have an engineered septic system. But basically it's
That doesn't
20,000, 40,000.
That doesn't protect depletion, that protects pollution.
Yeah, what
Yes.
about
Right.
wells?
Yeah,
that's exactly.
Requirement for wells.
Now, and now that's the other part of this that is almost going unnoticed, and that's why I think it's important that we bring the public in. The requirement now, the state law requirement is, if you put a second dwelling of any type on your property, you have to prove that you have potable water and septic system for it. So the old idea of a cabin without water that you could have on as a second dwelling, that's gone as of July 1st next
So
year.
how do you prove that you have the potable water without first drilling the well?
That's what you have to do.
So you have to do it before you can get the plan.
Correct. You
Well,
cannot get a permit unless you have proof that you can provide potable water and a septic
Sufficient
system.
potable water.
Correct.
And doesn't, I mean, the requirements, and I'm reaching back here years, but the requirements that septic systems and wells be separated by, I think,
A
100
distance,
feet.
yeah.
Is that gone now?
I think there's still a requirement that it has to
Oh, that's
be.
a health issue.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, with an engineered system, it might not be, I
Right.
mean, but anyway, yeah, no, I think there's. Frankly, in my opinion, I think the idea of where we don't have a public sewer system or a public water system the idea of cross contamination, for lack of a better word, to me is almost more of a threat than depletion,
Mhm.
with the exception of some areas.
Right.
But you did say the shoreline zone is exempt from this?
It isn't technically exempt, but the practicality is that it's exempt.
Okay, because I think the threat to depletion or saltwater intrusion from depletion is as a rule greater in that of those areas. But I can think of some areas, like the middle of Sprucehead Island, that's not in the shoreline zone.
Right.
Or the coming down the peninsula by the bookstore, although maybe all of that.
But they're
is
still all
shoreline.
pulling from the same aquifer.
I know,
you know?
well, I don't know that. I mean, I don't know what we have for,
If you're paying for, also if you're paying for engineered septic systems, I don't know how that's gonna be affordable housing.
Yeah, that is the other
yeah.
part. And as we have these discussions with the planning board, that keeps coming up is nobody's gonna do this because they're not gonna be able to afford to do it anyway. But you never know, somebody with deep
Okay,
pockets is gonna wanna do it.
But they're gonna be limited to what they can charge to sell or
That's
rent.
exactly right.
Yeah, but if you can
Yeah.
get grants and other things to offset other parts of the cost, you might be able to do it. What are the consequences? I know like with the shoreline zoning, if we don't enact a shoreline zoning ordinance that's in compliance with the state law, there's certain consequences.
Correct.
What are the consequences if we don't hear? Because I can see first time around. You know,
I do not know the answer.
okay,
But I am
that's
curious.
an interesting question though, because.
Oh, yeah, it absolutely.
Um,
Then if we come in compliance by July 1st. There are people looking their Airbnbs right now for next year.
Right,
Correct.
So does this affect any
So-
of 2024?
would you prevent people that currently have Airbnbs or VRBOs listed?
Yeah, I think the short answer is no, because we're not planning to implement any of these changes until the next town meeting, so it'd be effective in July. 2024.
but she's saying,
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
where they're gonna rent.
right,
Right.
August, and, yeah.
Yeah.
And you may also,
But
get if people
but-
think that you might put a limit on it, you make, or only people that are already doing it, you make it an influx coming right up of people deciding to Airbnb and VRBO things
To
that they
avoid-
didn't
Yeah, to avoid.
in the past, so they could say we're already doing it.
But again, I think, and I don't know the answer to this, but it strikes me that a lot of our vacation rentals are in the shoreline zone.
yeah.
Not all.
Not all, but a
No,
lot
no,
of,
but a lot.
yeah,
And in discussion with our lawyer about regulating or controlling short-term rentals. Our thinking was, what we have been discussing is we're not after if you have a single dwelling that you're Airbnb in, we may possibly, and that's what she has recommended, ask for that property to be registered, but not permitted, no restrictions. It's only if you get a second or third property in the same name, or you're an LLC that holds several different properties and you're managing, 5 different Airbnbs, then you would end up falling into the category that would be
no,
some kind of control.
would they all necessarily have to be in our town? Like if it's an LLC that has
Yeah,
them
that's-
in all the surrounding towns, they have
the
St. George, they have,
Yeah,
And some of the properties in town are exclusively short-term rental.
yes,
correct.
and
Yeah,
owned by
and that would
companies
be
like
hard to
that.
Get that information too necessarily. You're not gonna have a common database from other towns, but this conversation tonight strikes me that February is probably none too late, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of unanswered questions here that
Oh,
I think people
absolutely.
are gonna look to us, and particularly you.
Yeah, I agree. And my thinking
And it
is,
sounds like there's not I don't wanna say unanimous opinion between the ordinance review committee and the planning board, but
there is not.
and that's gonna lead to more.
Say the least.
That's gonna lead to more.
Oh, yeah.
I'll just put it bluntly, chaos at a public information meeting. If you got two different official, if you got the ordinance committee. And I don't know, maybe it doesn't neatly divide up that way, but maybe it does. So I think it's a great idea. I think we gotta get started and.
Should we start in January instead of February?
Well, I was debating that. I mean, June's town meeting, so May is gonna be our last chance to put it all together.
Plus you gotta have a public hearing, because it's a land use ordinance.
Yeah,
Have to have
yeah,
one.
so that's why I backed up to
Yeah,
May.
yeah.
So I went into a month there, and so April, I want to have everything kind of finalized. So I think we can live with February, and one of the reasons that I chose February is because I'm gonna have I'm not gonna be available on January. So, but I would rather have it in February than March. So I think that's gonna put us right up.
Definitely.
Especially if we want to actually take the input and do something with it. I mean, if we had here's what we're recommending, and probably not do a lot of tweaking to it, then we could do it later. But I really want the public input on this. I want to know what direction the town wants to go in.
And I think the public is. I mean, not tuned into this very much at all.
Oh, no.
And that's the other reason I wanted to do that here, is an opportunity to put it through in this forum, to the public, to let them know this is going on, and to make sure that they understand that a portion of it we have no choice in, unless we find out that the consequences aren't as dire as I would think they are. But
Well, it still puts us in violation of the law. but,
correct,
Yeah.
which could impact grants.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
so I'll
maybe even some sort of introductory email on the listserv.
yeah.
Way before February might not be a bad idea either, that the ordinance committee and the planning board are. This law now exists, it's gonna go into effect, the planning board knows, discussing it, we're planning something in February, just to kind of get people at least.
Thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, at least just, vaguely aware of it.
Well, and I agree, because I do think that it's gonna be important for the public to understand what the requirements are that are out there. And the ordinance review committee took it to the planning board. At least one person on the planning board didn't believe it, did not believe that the rules existed, that questioned every single bit of it. Because they said, we don't have to do that. We don't have to do that. And it's because they didn't know what the law had been.
But even if that letter said there's lots of unanswered questions at this point, or something to that effect, it at least would get it somewhat on some people's radar screens. I mean, not a lot of people aren't gonna pay much attention until town meeting time, and even then, they won't.
Yeah, I'll put something together.
Yeah, I just think that
Introduce
might not be a bad idea.
Good.
And the listserv is getting to be quite
Yeah,
sizable, right? I mean,
347 people,
huh?
347,
Right, and that means it reaches more than 347 because.
and how many voted? How many folks do we have in the last election?
546.
Wow.
Okay, that's all I got
Well,
on
good
that.
luck with that.
Thanks.
When is the next,
We haven't set a date yet. Our goal right now is we've pretty much gotten the little low hanging fruit things in the ordinance that need to just be fixed and tweaked. And we're pretty close, I think, to the legal portion of what we've got to do. But this is probably the biggest item.
and is it this, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not tuned into this real strongly either. This is where we might get some money to help with.
Yes.
Yeah.
$5,000.
Oh, we did get it. Oh, okay, great. That's helpful.
Okay. Quarterly expenses and review. I was pleasantly surprised that the state revenue sharing numbers did come in higher than
Yeah,
they were last year.
I was too, although it wasn't a quarter.
Yeah, July stayed about the same, but August was double and September was double.
I was surprised.
And October was good too. I emailed you what it was, John, but I don't remember.
You did?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
way back in October when. it
Oh,
came
yeah,
in.
I asked you about it. Yes, it was quite good, so that's good. Yep. And the automobile excise is very healthy.
Yeah.
And September, and isn't October usually a big month?
Yeah. It is,
And this is only through September, right?
yep.
So that's good. Ambulance billing is kind of right on 25%. And the homestead worked out okay.
Yep.
Terry, I do have a question, and we can talk about it tomorrow or something, but I don't understand why the 67,000 for the land purchase is in a revenue account under budget.
That's where Mindy had me put it. It's under expenses, but then we do it under revenue, so if you get a donation, it's got someplace to put it against.
Even though we're drawing that from surplus.
Right, they're two different transactions. It's in the capital expense.
Okay,
Capital
well, like I
expenses.
said, we can talk about it some other time, because I'm confused, but. And
I just followed Mindy's direction.
yeah,
on that
I'm
one.
sure she knows more about it than I do, but. It did confuse me.
Employee evaluation process.
We're gonna look at expenses at all? Oh. Terry, do you see anything that is out of whack?
I thought everything seems good.
Yeah, I don't see anything.
There was no like 48% spent already or anything crazy like that, except for insurance, but that's
Insurance.
always that way.
Yeah, but that's because it doesn't track over time. It's,
Yeah.
yeah. And that, just as a comment, the town roads is only spent at 7.39, but that's because the paving and, well, first of all, the snow plow contract just started kicking in.
Right,
And not a lot of the paving happened, and it's probably not, well, it's not probably, it's not gonna now until the spring, so. That's a little misleading, actually quite misleading. I am a little worried about the solid waste. It seems as though we're at the demo, it seems as though we're getting just an awful lot of,
we're getting a lot more than.
I don't know whether people are coming in now from out of town or contractors not buying vouchers when they're doing work on people's property in town.
I think that's part of the problem, and I think Dana's gotten very good at making sure people he knows has a sticker, and if he doesn't know them, he'll ask if they're from town, and if they say yes, it's okay.
even if they don't have a
Even
sticker.
if they don't have a sticker.
No, he'll make them come get one, but he
Okay.
makes sure that,
Okay, so you don't think it's people that are stickerless?
no, but I don't know that I mean, you could get a sticker from anybody, I mean. I could give Sue my sticker,
Oh, because they don't have to be affixed.
Yeah.
right,
How come they don't have to be, but they do if you go to the transfer station?
There's different body making the rules. We've had a lot of people complain about that, like if you rent out at least the transfer station, I think it's more to the transfer station, if you rent it out, it's gonna be affixed to the car, right?
Right.
So if someone's in there renting for a month, they can't go to that.
And I just found this out at the last meeting, they do have processes in place to accommodate folks like that.
They do.
Yes, they
Okay.
do. You just gotta talk to the,
Yeah.
the guy what is in charge down there.
But I don't think that's a huge problem here, because renters don't tend to, you
No.
know, bring stuff here,
No.
so. Well, maybe we could require them to be affixed.
I can say that that was a pretty significant emotional event for most people when the transfer station started.
Yeah, oh, I don't have any doubt about that at all,
I mean, what is the cost for a sticker for a year?
$10.
A year?
but 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years.
Yeah, so if you had two vehicles and you needed to get two stickers, that's not gonna break anybody's back. I think we should,
But generally, if you're going to the stump dump and you have a car in the truck, you're not gonna take your car to the stump dump.
no, I would have to.
So, or I'd call Cole.
Right,
But I think the thing is, you buy them at the transfer station and they fix.
yes, they do. So you would have to do that too,
Yeah, that's gonna be a problem.
or it would have to match the license plate, be registered with the license plate, but he would have to have access to that too.
That wouldn't work.
No, that wouldn't work. They'd have to be above. They'd have to be purchased here and affixed by the office staff. Where's Hannah?
That's Hanukkah.
Can't start till Hannah comes back.
But I think part of it is that some contractors are not getting vouchers.
I think that's true, and if Dana says, is that from your yard, and they say yes, he says, okay.
Yeah. But how many times do you renovate your kitchens 34 times in a year? I mean.
I agree.
So when we see that contractor on the list 5 Saturdays in a row, I mean, do still have to call them?
I don't know.
So
Um,
what is the voucher?
Well, if you, under the current rules, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you're a contractor and you can bring in, you can bring in stuff from outside of town, correct? If, no, you cannot.
It has to be from town.
Right, but you can bring in stuff from inside the town that's not from your property, but you gotta pay for it. So in other words, if I was redoing your roof and I stripped your roof. If I redid my roof and stripped my roof, I could bring it in my pickup up there and not get charged. But if I redid your roof and brought it up there, I should be charged for that as the contractor, and which means you get charged.
Right.
Because you can't do it yourself. So that's been a source of controversy with people as well, because they feel like, well, hey, it's still the roof that came from town, just because this guy can do it by himself and I can't, why do I have to get charged? So, but that's the rule currently, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And some contractors seem to re-roof their house every 3 days. I'm exaggerating. You get the point.
I do.
And if you can just give stickers to anybody can drive in there from Rockland.
Well, they would have to be residents, wouldn't they, to get a sticker?
There's no, there's no way of knowing, they got a sticker,
But I mean, if they were affixed to the vehicle,
but they're not, so,
Right.
right, yeah. I mean, I think affixing it to the vehicle would cut down a lot, but it's also gonna cause a major, controversy.
well, do they want our taxes to keep going up because we have out of towners in there dumping all the
Yeah.
time?
And the other problem is a lot of the other surrounding towns are a lot more expensive than here. So there's an incentive to come here.
Another good reason for paying for your roof at both facilities.
Walter has his hand up.
Yes, Walter.
Just a little history on the transfer station experience. We got a lot of controversy when we put that fix the sticker on the car or the truck. but that's that's gone away. And the we weren't the problems were not as much about cheaters, even though in Owl's Head somebody was selling the CD cases to put the mobile stickers in so that people could sell them. But the real benefit was the reduction of the arguments between the residents who didn't bring their stickers when they were mobile and the attendants, which tied up and reduced the efficiency of the operation. First of all, the controversy, I think, has died down to noise level at best. I mean, it's pretty much gone now. Everybody has accepted the rule. And the operation became way more efficient because of the imposition of the rule. People got over the inconvenience. They got over we don't do things like that here anymore, I'll let Jeff comment because he succeeded me on the board, but that was what I saw as the big benefit of what we did there with the rule of affixing the sticker to the car.
Yeah, I agree. We don't hear any noise level. Occasionally we'll get somebody who has a business in one of the 3 towns and they generate stuff to go to the transfer station, but because they don't live in town, their car's not registered in town, they don't think they have a way of getting a sticker, and that's what I found out the other day. In fact, we do have a process for dealing with those one-off kind of things where you're unique.
Well, we'd have to have that too, because we have contractors who don't live in town, who work in town, and that material can go there.
Correct.
And they're the ones that come in and get their vouchers.
Yes.
Yeah, because they don't have a sticker.
Right.
Well, because we don't have a commercial use thing out here, that's transfer station, a commercial user pays a different.
Yeah, and that is true.
That's true. Yeah. Well, that's so it's collecting other people's trash, but
Right.
yeah. Well, that's a long way from the expenses, but I am a little worried about as we move towards budget time. And we've also, one of the things that I've observed, and I think Phil's working on it, we've got to, and this is related to expenses, we've got to coordinate better the pushing down of the can. I'll give you an example. This week, Phil called Wednesday, the can was pretty much full. Phil called to get it crushed down. And it didn't get crushed down before he opened Saturday. By Saturday noon,
Yeah.
shortly it was overflowing. Dan had to turn people away. And then Larry came in Sunday and crushed it down. Well, it didn't do any good
No,
on Sunday.
I heard about it Saturday.
Yeah.
Several
And
times.
Phil's gonna talk to Jimmy, because timing is everything there, you know what I mean? And you've got to crush it down, because if we don't crush it down, we're hauling air. And we're paying the same transport fee, whether we're hauling air or we're hauling lead. So. And that it seems like that gets on track and then it kind of falls apart a little bit or something, so, but I know Phil's working on that, so.
Yes. Yeah.
I think the expenses look pretty good.
Yeah, for us. Employee evaluation process. That's an item we want to talk about.
I actually would like to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
7:10, maybe, I have 2 comments. One is, maybe we need to do this in some sort of workshop setting, because it feels like every time we get to it, it's just 7:10. But having said that, I've been thinking about this, and the problem that I finally have been able to articulate to myself is that I feel uncomfortable doing this because I don't feel I know, sitting here and meeting, twice a month, how truly department heads are performing, and we get so many department heads, little department heads in some cases, you know, the addressing officer and this and that report to us. And I just don't feel close enough to the situation to make an informed judgment about someone's performance, and shortcomings and strengths. I mean, I have my impressions, but I have since learned that sometimes my impressions are very much in error. And I don't want to go into details, but I mean, there was one particular example, you know, not too long ago. So I feel I'm in here more than you guys are. I mean, I come in probably twice a day usually, you know, just to, how's it going? You need a check signed, and because I'm doing other stuff too. And so I'm thinking, if I feel that way, you guys must really feel that way. Maybe you don't, but
No,
I just don't feel in a position to make good judgments.
well, I have some very strong opinions on any kind of personnel rating systems that I feel very strongly about both ways, but having prefaced it with that, I think it is more important to figure out what your rating system process, what it's about, why you're rating the employee. And there are a myriad of reasons why you would rate an employee. And some of those things that you might rate an employee for are at conflict with each other. So if you're rating an employee to give them an incentive pay, or you're rating employees to improve their performance, those might go contrary to each other. That if you're honest about critiquing them, then you may be bumping them out of the performance pay. So many years ago, I decided I was against personnel policy or personnel rating systems as a rule. But I can be convinced if we know what the purpose is, and then build the rating system for that purpose, or maybe two reasons. But you just can't use a rating system for everything that comes along. You can't use it to document bad behavior or to discipline folks, and at the same time use it to award folks. It just doesn't work. And it gets harder and harder to do a realistic, just like you were insinuating, a realistic rating system if you are further removed from the employee and the actions. And so I agree. I think a workshop could help.
I'd like to see if there's some way, and I think the woman across from me is probably gonna shoot me, but I'd like to see if there's some way we could, by ordinance or policy, talk to MMA Legal, hand off some of the initial evaluation, possibly to the town administrator, even though the town administrator, I understand, doesn't have the power to hire and fire like a town manager would. That doesn't necessarily mean to me that we look to her for advice on a litany of things. Why couldn't we look to her for advice on, employee performance? I mean, she knows a lot more about what's happening and than I ever will, because she's here. I don't want to say 24/7, that's not right, but
Close.
yeah.
I don't think it's uncommon to have a manager do those evaluations. I know that in our system, it's your immediate supervisor that does your evaluations, and they have no power to hire or fire.
And that's true here too, because I mean,
And there's never any
Amy
money
Amy
associated
and
with
David
it.
would evaluate the
Right.
the employee. So I mean, I can't believe there isn't some way we could have some sort of a system like that. I also wonder if we have too many people reporting to us.
That's.
I mean, should others,
Yeah.
some of these smaller positions be reporting to a David?
Right,
And, you know, of course, that's more responsibility.
You know,
for him.
and then they have a personnel file that you just, then those are just in, and if some
Yeah.
big thing comes up, then you've got that file. And
Because-
it, quite often, I mean, I can tell you in the school system, there's never money involved in it, because it's all contractual.
Right, which is
So-
not the case here,
Right,
but there's rarely money involved. in
Right.
it, but I think another thing though, Jeff, is what happens is, you know, we'll go blissfully along for years and people give rosy evaluations and all of a sudden there's a problem. And because of our removal, we have not been as critical as perhaps we should have been.
Right.
And all of a sudden, if you need to take some sort of severe disciplinary action or discipline, you've got this row
Yeah.
of very positive rosy, and
Yeah.
what's the matter? You know? So, I mean, that's another
Oh,
landmine, so to speak.
I agree 100%. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I, in general, am not in
Yeah.
favor of.
Yeah,
Because I saw too many, not just in the military, but also in county life. That the expectation is you get a firewall, you get a 9, is what they call it in the military, but they did the same thing at the county. Every employee expects to get the highest rating.
or next time.
Or next to
And
highest.
that's an insult.
You're correct, that's right. And so it just, everything just gets overinflated. The whole process becomes inflated after time. And every one of the organizations I've been associated with that have been in that situation, they go, we're gonna fix this. You're now mandated, you can only give 10% of these and 50% of those. And so for a very short amount of time, the people that are living under that system at the time get rated differently than the people before and the people afterwards. And so now if you compare them, you've got apples and oranges and you're using a completely different
Yeah.
rating system.
Yeah.
So,
Well, maybe also we could get some help.
yeah.
And I don't know what.
There are folks, there are HR folks that can,
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I got convinced at the county to do it. It's their HR person came in and said, here's the reason why it's good, and this is what we could do to deal with some of the problems. And so with that, we're adjourned.
Would we, do you think we could maybe couple this with the ATV public hearing?
Oh. I don't know, I think the ATV things.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Big
that's a
enough on its
standalone.
own.
Yeah.
Well, it may be
Scandal.
nobody.
Well, right, to those people who pay attention to
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Oh, you mean do the workshop
After,
after?
yeah. Or we could put it on the agenda, and if we do have a ton of people here and we spend 4 hours here, we can always table it.
That's not a bad idea.
Okay.
I was thinking doing it together, no.
No,
Yeah,
together,
Yeah,
but, you know,
on the same day.
well, we'll take a 5-minute break or something, you know what I mean, and, you know, let people commit, and if there's a bunch of people there, and so.
Good.
That sound good?
Yeah,
Okay.
it does.
Oh, did we, can I just interrupt 1 second? You had an adjustment request, right, that never got conveyed?
Yeah.
Oh,
Right,
Oh, so I just didn't want us to all of a sudden adjourn and
Oh, what was it?
regarding spending.
well, I wanted to, get board approval to spend some of our checking account money on expanding the parking at Gilbert Butler Center.
Oh, that's the one that's being done, but we don't have much of this.
They dug out to, could be a sandbox, you know, it could be voluntary, but, I think we've proven that we need some more parking up there. Because
Definitely.
when it was a school, kids didn't drive, and now the people that are going there are driving, and And a lot of them like to park near the door because they want the easier access, so, but we would like to expand in front of the building and also on the part facing the river.
So it's about a total of 9 spaces,
And
10. And just be, not paved, but
it would be, packed, a reclaimed asphalt as a final.
and Penny's talking about doing it with donation money.
Well, and our fundraising money. that we
Right,
have.
yeah, right, not town.
Book sales and lawn sales.
Guesstimate on
and-
how much? Less
John
than 10?
talked to Jake.
There was a little confusion. Jim was supposed to get us a number today. He didn't understand that, which is why he started working on it. But, I just called him before the meeting and he said, I said, we need a number. And he said, all right, he said, well, it would not to exceed 4,000, but probably substantially less.
Okay.
So I would make a motion that we approve, up to $4,000 and hopefully substantially less to, add 10 additional gravel parking spaces at the Guilford Butler Center utilizing donated funds.
I would second that.
Any further discussion?
I just don't want to see a lot of street parking again. I think that's pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
And I think this would help that and make it safer for people. And it's gonna be obviously a while before we're into a new building there, so.
Okay, all those in favor?
Since you already done it.
And we do have Amy here to help us understand the new stabilization program.
Yes, $30 million. Commission help, yeah. So there will be an application. The service to make out with 50 questions. The biggest part's gonna be, which I think Terry sent, there's 4 things they'll need, which is, spreadsheets from prior balance sheets. And so she had kind of got those together already. It was supposed to be out. The application was supposed to be out by this week. It's not out yet. So that happened and the listing kind of put things behind at state level to get everything out. So, they were hoping to have it out by the end of this week. And then it is, the formula is, there's a formulation, which I think I forwarded all that stuff to you guys. So once you plug in everything we have, it gives you the number that you will receive, the amount. We have to figure out, like, there's a certain amount you can use for capital reserve, for capital, there's a certain amount that we have to kind of say what we're gonna use it for. It doesn't have to be specifically like this amount, this amount, this amount. There is I know for capital reserve, you can't exceed 50,000. There's a certain amount that you can use for each one. And then like if some of it's gonna be used for like raises or bonuses or whatever. We have to just make sure we can, after that, budget wise, making sure that going forward, we're putting it into our budget. So those are the things that when it comes open, we just kind of have to have an idea of what we're gonna put in there. I think it's I think they told me at the board meeting that there's like by the end of November, you would have it middle of December, and then it closes well, it probably will close later now that it's not open yet. And then it'd be first of the year that you receive the money, so.
So the way I'm kind of reading it, we're a non-transporting
Yeah,
entity.
we're transporting,
We are a
we transport.
Oh, okay. So I thought transporting meant that you transport between.
We do from the islands to the hospital.
Ah, okay, all right.
So and we're 911, so we're transport.
So,
So we are both
yeah,
officially.
so we're eligible for, it looks like 15 to 200,000. Is what it kind of implied. And then
15,000 up to
Up to 200,000.
Yeah, so depending on the numbers of our calls, like, and everything in the formula that we respond to, our balance sheets and all that stuff.
Okay.
But yes, the highest number is 200.
So I think then so they haven't set when it has to go in, so we don't have a deadline yet.
We don't have a deadline yet because it was the deadline was gonna be the 19th if it opened up last week.
Yeah.
For us to get the money by the end of November. And then if you had it in, there was a second deadline, I think it was December 9th. And then you would get it by the end of December. The application hasn't opened yet. They're trying to make it as simple as possible for you to make it out. So that it's not paper copy, that it goes right in, the numbers go right in, and then you electronically sign, and then all it is you get what what you're putting in for. And that's, I think, what the whole is.
Yeah. So I think from my perspective, my only caution would be if we're going to get money that has a tail to it, that we're gonna be obligated next year or the year after to match or meet. And
I don't think
talk about
anything's
that.
a match for like the capital reserve, that's not a match.
Right.
Like, but, so those are the things like, hey, this is, and then we have to show that we used it for capital reserve for an ambulance or whatever we're looking at. But yes, when it comes to the salary piece, if that's what we're doing and that stuff, that needs to be, that's why it came to you guys.
Okay.
So that you can say, this is kind of what it's for, and how do we want to use it before we put it into play.
Okay, and so, but you're going to give us the information to help make that decision.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
So what we're kind of looking at is like the information, so when we gave raises last year, why we were giving them.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean, like
Yep, yep.
what everybody else's pay raises were kind of going up percentage wise. So I think with this money coming out is to try to retain people for full-time services and per diem services. So I'm trying to get feedback on what people are gonna do with the money, and if it is bonus wise and of people that was here instead of salary increases. You know what I mean, like, what's the better aspect that doesn't lock us into, hey, we now have to pay for max $30 an hour starting 2 years from now, or you know what I mean? So I think that's the things that we need to look at.
Yeah, that's what you mean by a tail.
Correct.
Yes, that's exactly. And early on, it says this is for EMS services that are in trouble,
Correct.
but I think the implication is all of us are in
All
trouble.
of us, I don't think if you look at the formula, there isn't anybody
Who wouldn't?
that doesn't qualify.
Yeah, it's just.
Well, that was the question I had, because it actually says at immediate risk of failing or leaving their communities without access to adequate emergency medical services, which is a pretty strong statement.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's honestly, if you look at the people in education, like, how many people have on their roster and how many people are active?
But I just hate to feel like we're at an immediate risk of failing. But anyways,
I think they're.
be that as it may, my real question was, do you anticipate that? Because it seems like you gotta go through a very straightforward mathematical calculation to see if you're eligible, but your sense is that,
We're eligible, I already,
your sense is that everybody's gonna be eligible?
we have looked at it at the state
Yeah.
level and everybody's eligible.
And we don't actually have a balance sheet on
Was the balance sheet in the audit?
not on the ambulance service,
It's for the
It's just the
town.
town.
the town itself,
Yeah.
okay,
No,
okay,
it's the-
okay,
it's the
all right,
town.
yeah.
And then the balance sheet on,
Okay,
the
so
ambulance does have a budget, so what.
it does in the revenue, so
So,
this seems like it's gonna be fairly complicated, the
I have
numbers.
to do it, the numbers are not complicated, honestly. Because they're gonna do it for you once you plug them in.
Yeah, but you're gonna adjust all your wages to a certain amount and. If you paid less than. 28.89 an hour and blah, 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 and. So anyways, do you have a sense of what you're thinking about using it for?
I think we should put some for capital reserve away, that's the biggest piece.
You got my support on that.
Other than that, I guess I would say, depending on what we're expecting for what people are gonna be paying for wages, looking at using some of it for that. Cause you know, we're gonna get a percentage of raise anyway each year, but we also need to keep up with our surrounds. And I think we're doing really good at that at this point. But with this money, I think people are gonna try to retain more people. But I mean, we're doing really well. We have our stretcher, we have a good ambulance. I mean, so I'm really gonna sit down and make notes on it and, that I wanted to get you guys' feedback on what you thought some of that should be used for. I honestly think a bonus is a great thing because we have, you know, people that work here. Not a huge number of people that work here, but you know, probably 12 that work a lot of hours here. And through COVID and, you know, put in a lot of time. So it may be something to use that instead of a salary increase, but a bonus piece. That would be a thought.
And the bonus does not carry
Forward.
the tail with it, so to
Right,
speak.
Right,
Right.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea too, because I agree with you, just my casual observance being around here a couple times a day for a few minutes is. I see some of the same people over and over again, and they're the people that are doing stuff around here. I mean, I came in tonight and one guy's mopping the floor and doing this and that, and sometimes some people, I don't recognize them, I see them very infrequently and they're watching TV, not that watching TV is bad, but you know, so I like the idea of rewarding.
The people that
People
work
that are
over
kind of-
24 hours a week, or you know what I mean, like that are
Yeah, exactly.
making that piece of a bonus. I think that's important. So. Those would be my two big ideas.
And when did you think the suspense is on this? End of the month?
End of the year,
End of the year, okay.
they said they would, you know, we get it filled out, you would receive the money by the end of the year.
So,
You
when
think
is
you'll
this-
have the calculations done by the 28th of November?
If the application is out, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So what is this note on the front? I don't even know this.
Oh, that's me, that's my handwriting.
It says,
I was in the board meeting and I was,
it says October 25th to apply for funding.
it was supposed to be out by October 25th.
So, okay, we thought it was next October.
Yeah.
No, this year, so this is the this year thing. So it should
So
be
this year meaning
2023,
the calendar year.
yeah, yes,
Okay,
so, well, we're actually not calendar year, so we can apply for it as soon as it comes out.
okay, because the state is on a fiscal year as we are too, so we're talking the fiscal year then? This money is to be used prior to July 1st?
No, it doesn't have to be used, there's not a stipulation of.
Not a
it has to be
deadline.
used. There's no deadline,
Okay. Okay,
so
so,
we have to apply for it by a deadline, if we don't hit the deadline to apply for
and,
it. we're
and
not-
the deadline was October 25th.
No, that was when the application was supposed to come out.
Okay.
It got pushed to this week.
Okay, because it says October 25th to apply for funding, okay, that's what.
That was my remember look on the page for it.
Okay, so we don't know the due date yet.
We do not know, it's going to,
Okay.
I will know, I'll be kind of the first one to know because I'm board chair. So I'll get the phone call first.
Yeah.
And then it'll go out. So, I'm awaiting for that phone call.
Good.
So that I can let everybody know. To apply.
Okay, so my reading is this is just good news.
Yes,
Okay.
it is not bad news at all. This is really
Oh.
exciting news. That, you know, there's funding there and it's a stabilization. Hey, this is what we're gonna look for the future. Are we gonna stay pretty young? Do we, you know what I mean? Is there other things we need to look at? So
Thank you. Do you have anything else?
I have one more thing. Can
Okay,
I say one more thing?
sure.
Brian Colson got his paramedic license.
yay.
So we have a paramedic now on our service. He's training, with me the next few days. We're going over dirt boxes, we're going over a bunch of things, but, he officially passed his test last week.
Wow.
So, that was the grant fund that, grant funding last year for $12,000 that we got for him, so.
Good.
So now we have a new paramedic in town.
Okay.
Congratulations.
So, yeah. I would like
Mr.
to
Coulson.
let you guys know that, but I also, at some point, maybe in the next board meeting, we can have him come in.
That'd be good.
More importantly, comes the baby.
Very good. He's very good. Cute pictures.
Good. Okay,
I think that's all. I have. Oh. I have one more.
okay. One more.
The Medicare,
Oh, yeah.
that we had to make out, that's 80 pages long. And 72% through that, so it will be done by the end of the month.
Okay.
And I will need someone to certify it. So Terry, I'll be getting in touch with you, to help certify it.
Okay.
It will be done and it has to be done by November 30th.
You need board member or?
I need just somebody that will go through the numbers and the application, and Medicare needs to be like, yes, this was from South Thompson, and she's the ambulance director, and it all looks correct.
Okay.
And you have to go in and make an account and all that stuff, so.
I would entertain a motion to authorize the town administrator to certify that.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion, Terry? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
That's what they always say, yeah.
I mean, David could do.
Okay, where are we? Monthly reports. Again, the CEO report is very detailed.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it.
Me too.
Me too.
And it's not just because it's detailed, it's because now I get a feel for the things that we should have been doing all along.
Right.
That we probably weren't. So, thank you. Correspondence, Life Flight of Maine. We get this every year and we typically send a note that we don't donate that way in the town.
I didn't see them asking for money this time.
Yeah, they did.
They did 700.
Oh, yeah, okay, it's usually down in the bottom.
Yeah,
It's in the middle.
So much per capita.
I would move that we instruct the town administrator to inform them that we do not donate to is it a nonprofit corporation?
Yes.
To nonprofit corporations as a matter of policy.
I'll second
And they
that.
might wanna update Owen Casas to Terry Baines.
Right.
Yeah, and the way of discussion, I would say that this is something that members of the town may very well want to include on their annual givings, because it is a worthwhile organization. And it does support us, but it's just not the way we do it. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And letter from Tina Hendricks, who, as I understand it, had a Halloween function,
Tea party, yeah.
tea party, and was planning to donate any revenue from that to, I don't remember what it was, we were gonna,
The heating fund.
the heating fund.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, she didn't make enough money to donate anything,
Yeah,
but
right.
we appreciate the
Effort.
thought and the effort, and she said she's gonna keep doing it
Yes.
in the future.
Well, we weren't even 100% certain that was a great place to donate it, because we've had that heating money sitting there for years that we've never used, so.
Yeah.
Which we should do something with, either give it to one of the organizations that does heating assistance and let them dole it out or something, but not tonight.
And then the last thing is FEMA Discovery Meeting invitation. I did get that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to attend, but I am planning to attend one of them.
I didn't get it, it says I got it as road commission, but I didn't. Unless it went to my spam, which is where you found yours, Terry, right?
Yep.
But I now have it, so, oh, you do have it. But this work is all in Waldo County, is it not?
The way I'm reading it, I think. We have some splash over, so to speak. Because I think it does involve St. George.
It involves the St. George watershed,
Right.
but
St.
that's
George
not all,
Sheepscot watershed.
but that's not all in Knox County.
No, but part of it is.
I thought I read somewhere it said all the work was. Now, of course, I can't find where I thought I read that.
It does give a number of someone that you can call.
Yeah, I don't see it in there. I swore I saw it.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
Okay. Going crazy.
And next meeting is 28. 6 o'clock. And the 11th, 6 o'clock.
And we were gonna bring back at the next meeting an agenda item from last meeting that was tabled, right, on, that escapes me too.
Did we schedule a meeting for a regular meeting in December for the 12th?
Yeah,
Yes.
Just gonna have, we're gonna try to have one, but now we might have that workshop.
Yeah.
But at the last meeting, we had an agenda item that we tabled to
Yeah.
2 weeks from now, which,
Yep.
can you remind me what that was?
Nope, but I already did the agenda.
Because I think it was something we had to prepare,
Something Jeff is gonna work on.
something we had to prepare for.
Yeah. Let me,
It wasn't purchasing,
let me pull it up.
it's in the minutes.
And yeah, I'm gonna pull
Oh,
it up.
yeah, we approved it.
I just wanted to be reminded what it was in case it was something I had to work on.
So while we're doing that and signing warrant items.
Building use form.
Building use, right.
Oh, yes, yes. So is there any public comment for items not on the agenda? Then without objection, one last time, we are adjourned.